Hello, my dear friends. How are you doing? Hope you are having an amazing day and not having to deal with drama. Ready for new stories I have for you today? Let's go to the first one. And don't forget to listen to the end of the story, guys, to hear my insights. Enjoy the stories, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. Me and my fiancé, Jake, both mid-20s, are getting married next month. All of this stuff is stuff that happened over the past several months. My future mother-in-law and mom do not get along at all. Both my and Jake's parents are long divorced. My future mother-in-law did a lot of planning for the wedding, as neither me nor Jake knew what to do. She used to work as a wedding planner. My mom wrote us a check for $10,000 to put towards our wedding, which we did. When we were trying to decide a venue and color scheme, we were really torn and asked Jake's mom for suggestions. She told us she had the perfect idea, and if we'd give her access to the wedding funds, she'd make arrangements. We did, and she reserved the venue and picked out a color scheme she felt matched us. I didn't mind too much because Jake and I are both extremely busy and had limited time to work on it. My mom and I had made plans to go wedding shopping one weekend. I had told future mother-in-law about our plans and invited her to join us. The weekend before, she came over to my and Jake's apartment saying she wanted to spend some girl time together and invited me out to lunch. I said yes, and we went to a sushi bar. Afterwards, she asked if I was okay driving and chatting for a bit, which I was. Future mother-in-law ended up stopping at a bridal boutique and encouraging me to look around. I didn't really want to that day, but it felt rude to say no, so we went in. I ended up falling in love with the dress, and it fit me fairly well, so it would only need minor alterations. I expressed I hoped it's still there next weekend when my mom is with us. Future mother-in-law advised me to try on a few other dresses, which I did, but none felt the same as that dress. While I was getting dressed back in my regular clothes, future mother-in-law purchased the dress for me. I was thrilled, but my mom had promised to buy the dress for me, and I told future mother-in-law that my mom might be upset. Future mother-in-law assured me that she'd send my mom a Venmo request for the cost, and my mom could handle the alterations, so it would be like my mom paid for it. Again, I wasn't sure about this, but I said okay because I didn't want to hurt her feelings. Later, my mom called and asked why the hell Jake's mom was requesting money from her. I ended up telling her we had lunch and went impromptu dress shopping, and future mother-in-law bought the dress I fell in love with, and the Venmo request was for the cost of the dress. My mom was pissed off at future mother-in-law and accused her of stealing that experience from her. Edit. More questions were asked by my mom, and the topic of the venue came up. I had not yet seen the venue, nor had my mom, but with future mother-in-law's wedding planning background, I trusted her to pick something decent. The venue and color scheme decorations future mother-in-law picked were the venue and color she married her current husband at, which was the man she left Jake's father for about 10 years ago. After our convo ended, my mom texted future mother-in-law and basically blasted her over taking me dress shopping, booking that venue, accused her of trying to relive her own wedding through me and Jake, and told future mother-in-law she's manipulative as hell. Future mother-in-law ended up posting on Facebook that my mom doesn't want the wedding to happen, and my mom doesn't think that Jake is good enough for me. Not true, but future mother-in-law has a penchant for being a bit dramatic. This led to Jake's dad contacting my mom and asking why she thinks Jake isn't good enough for me to marry. My mom told Jake's dad that future mother-in-law is a lying bee, and she never said that. She ended up sending screenshots of the convo she had with future mother-in-law to Jake's dad, where she blasted future mother-in-law about taking me dress shopping and accusing her of trying to reenact her own wedding through Jake and me. Jake's dad ended up apologizing to my mom, but he took the screenshots and posted them in the comments under future mother-in-law's post about my mom saying Jake isn't good enough for me. People saw and started questioning future mother-in-law about what really happened. Future mother-in-law ended up having a massive panic attack and had to go to the ER, where she voluntarily submitted to a 72-hour psychiatric hold. Now, the wedding is in just over a month. Future mother-in-law is not comfortable at all around my mom and has told me that if my mom is there, it's likely to trigger another panic attack for her, and she'd likely need an ambulance to get her at the wedding. Jake says both of our moms should be invited, just have them stay away from each other the whole time. However, future mother-in-law is scared my mom will try to humiliate her again and has literally begged me in tears to uninvite my mom for her mental health. I told my dad I was considering uninviting my mom, and he thinks I'm in the wrong. It's rare that he sides with my mom on anything, and ended up telling me if I don't have my mom there, Don't expect him there either, because he agrees with my mom's assessment about future mother-in-law. My siblings also agree if I uninvite mom, they won't be there. I don't want my mom to miss my wedding, but I'm worried about how future mother-in-law will react if she's around my mom, and she has a history of panic attacks, and I don't want there to be drama at my wedding. I also want my dad and siblings there for my big day. If I did uninvite my mom, I'd do all I can to make it up to her after the wedding. Plus, I really don't want to start out my marriage on a negative note with future mother-in-law, and I know that would. Would I be the a-hole if I uninvited my mom for humiliating future mother-in-law and causing her panic attack, even though I'd risk my dad and siblings not coming to my wedding either? Future mother-in-law has not only taken over the wedding, she's pushed OP's mom out of everything. She deliberately stole wedding dress shopping from her. There's no way it wasn't planned. She's taking away all special mom-daughter moments, and OP is blind to it. They should have hired a wedding planner, then none of this would be happening. OP is in the wrong here for letting her future mother-in-law run the show and pushing her mom out. She knows that her mom and her future mother-in-law don't get along. OP needs to watch her future mother-in-law. She sounds highly manipulative, and OP seems to be oblivious to it. What? How exactly did your mother humiliate your future mother-in-law? Your mother-in-law took from your mom the experience of shopping for a wedding dress with her daughter, something that's a big deal to some people. Then your mother-in-law just Venmos your mom for the dress. That wasn't what your mom had in mind, I'm sure. She could have just given you the money in that case. But the point was watching you try on dresses and being part of your decision-making. I can't believe this is real, because how the hell do you think your mom was the problem in this scenario? You're the a-hole here, you and your future mother-in-law. I feel bad for your mom. And then to uninvite her? Why do you hate your mom so much? You've already replaced her with your mother-in-law, it sounds like. You're the a-hole. Both you and future mother-in-law are. Your future mother-in-law knew full well what she was doing and knew it would upset your mom. Your mom didn't humiliate anyone, but you and future mother-in-law certainly humiliated your mom. It would be the last straw if you uninvited your mom from your wedding. Your future mother-in-law has taken control of your wedding and has even deprived your mom of the experience of wedding dress shopping with you. Don't be so desperate to keep on the good side of future mother-in-law that you completely sideline and alienate your mom in the process. You would be the a-hole. Your future mother-in-law absolutely did steal this experience from her, and I have a sneaking suspicion she did it on purpose. Your mom has every right to be upset. And when exactly did she humiliate your future mother-in-law? I'm sure your mom is deeply hurt. I would be. 4 years ago, I, 30 female, lost my daughter Rosie through a stillbirth. It was a huge shock because I went into labor thinking we were going to have a healthy little girl at the end, but she never even took a breath. My husband and I were reeling from the shock. Nobody was sure why it happened either. We'd announced to people that I had gone to give birth, and then we had to notify people that she was gone. I don't remember much from the weeks that followed. I got so depressed, I spent some time in the hospital after my husband grew so concerned about me. Last year, I gave birth to our son, and his arrival was a real turning point for me. I had done all the therapy and healing I could, but having my son helped in a way nothing else could. My family were always aware of this. Everyone knew Rosie's name. We'd announced her name at my baby shower, and it was engraved on her urn. My sister announced her pregnancy in February, and I was so excited for her. When she said she was having a girl, she seemed to think that I might struggle hearing that, but I was honestly so happy for her. She never mentioned the name. I never asked. I've always believed something like this is up for the parents to reveal in their own time. My niece was born 3 weeks ago. My sister posted the announcement of her arrival with her name, Rosemary, Rosie. In her post, she declared that baby Rosie would go by Rosie, but they had given her a substantial name because they cared about their daughter's future and how they did not want to stick her with a juvenile nickname as her given name. I read through the whole post in so much shock that I had to read it 2 more times, and I needed to get my husband to read it to see if he read it the same way I did. The post read as being so condescending toward my husband and I. The way she dissed the name Rosie as a full name while also using it, and never even gave me a heads up about it. The post received so much backlash that my sister took it down. Our brother told her she was an effing B, and to get rid of the post before my husband or I saw it. I did not acknowledge any of it was happening. I did not reach out to my sister, and I did not reply to texts from her. But I did talk to our brother, and I told him I had seen the post, and so had my husband. that we read it several times between us before it was removed. My sister came by my house on Wednesday. She did not call or text ahead of time. She just showed up and wanted to talk. I told her I had nothing to say to her and shut the door in her face. She rang our doorbell and knocked several times before giving up. She sent me messages afterward saying I needed to act like an adult and talk to her, and that shutting the door in her face made me a passive-aggressive a-hole. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Her entire post was passive-aggressive about the name you chose first. She could have come to you and said, I want to name my daughter after my niece, in tribute. But that's not what she wanted to do. She wanted to one-up her sister. Not the a-hole. What the hell? You are not an a-hole at all. I never understand the stories about this, and usually it is part of a pattern of behavior by the sibling. Take as much time as you need. No pressure to ever interact with your sister again, at least from me. I would need a real heartfelt apology before even considering interacting again. Not the a-hole. Nobody owns a name, but there are unspoken rules of morality that would exclude using the name of a baby that died tragically. I would be reminded every day of the child that I lost, as I imagine will be your cruel reality. The time for your sister to discuss her name choice was before giving birth. Now she wants to discuss it, figuring it's better to ask forgiveness than permission? She doesn't get to decide when or if you're able to forgive her. I'm so very sorry for your loss, in addition to the predicament you have been placed in. My 37 female, husband 43 male, and I have a son, 9 male together, and I'm currently pregnant with our second child. My husband and I have already booked the venue for the gender reveal. We'll lose the photographer's deposit and what we spend on decorations, etc. However, my husband is more concerned about the reputation effect as he grew up affluent, has a very high-paying job, and also a stake in family business. However, I can tell that despite us already having a boy, who he absolutely adores, they can do no wrong in each other's eyes. My son always had every toy, fun activity, best clothes gifted by his dad. He desperately wants our second child, who we expect to be our last, to be a boy. I went into planning this reveal rationalizing that gender disappointment is okay, but I've come to realize that there's wishing you're having a son, and then there's fixating on not having a girl, even more than wanting another son, and my husband falls into the second category. We didn't do a gender reveal for our firstborn because my husband kept putting off whether or not he wanted to hear it from the doctor, and when we ended up learning, with him ecstatic, about having a son less than a month before giving birth. It's not at all his fault. He grew up with an older dad who was always controlling towards his mother. Their town at the time was essentially a company town, and his dad threatened her family's jobs. Plus, he made it impossible for her to go about her day without seeing him until she agreed to be with him. My husband also pursued me pretty aggressively, and we had tension over how I at times felt uneasy around him. Yes, we've been in therapy over this. Our marriage had been strained because I was done with him not understanding why my body was still not 100% 3 months after giving birth. He would counter by saying I turned down S the day after giving birth, but that was him showing he was attracted to me post-baby. Now his demons are back. We got to a point where he said fine to me going alone to hear the baby's gender, without telling him, and I found out we're having a girl. I guess I don't have a good poker face by his negative reaction after I got home. He is arguing he doesn't know the baby's gender because I did not explicitly tell him, but 100% he does know. I'd be fine with a reveal where the guests are the ones being surprised, but it's in a week, and with each day, my husband grows more withdrawn, and he's not the type who can fake happiness, and often tries to leave and pull me away with him when he's really upset. I decided to pull the plug. Again, he's not mad about the money, yet he's angry that we're doing this to our family and friends, and what this may say about him. I put my foot down. Am I the a-hole? You're planning to raise a daughter with this man? Wow, he ducking sucks. Cancel the whole thing since it's a stupid waste of time anyways, and now has been ruined completely by his attitude. Was he always a misogynist? I can understand wanting a son as a man, but he already has a son and is pissed that the second child is a girl. Does he have a crappy personality in other aspects of life too? You're the a-hole for marrying a controlling misogynist, having a child with him, who will grow up to be a controlling misogynist, and then defending his behavior on here. Pull your head out of your butt. For reference, my wife is the sweetest, most hardworking, kindest person in the world. She's been trying to get closer to my mom because she wants a good mother-in-law-daughter-in-law relationship. But my mom doesn't like her. My wife does things to be helpful and supportive, but my mom doesn't like any of it. My wife is a little silly and has a childlike sense of wonder, and my mom frequently makes comments behind her back of how weird she is and when she would grow up. My mom rebuffed anything to make her closer to my wife. My mother needed a liver transplant a few months ago. I wasn't a match, but my wife luckily was. She volunteered to get tested, and she was the one who donated part of her liver to save my mom. You would think my mom would be grateful. No, my mom remained cold and exclusionary to her. My mom is getting remarried. She made my brother's wife and my sister into bridesmaids. My wife didn't say anything, but I knew she was disappointed. My mom pulled her aside to explicitly tell her she wouldn't be a bridesmaid, which I thought was demeaning and unfair. I was fed up, and I didn't understand why my mom was being so cruel. I told her she was a terrible person for deliberately excluding my wife, especially for the wedding, and especially after my wife had done so much for her. I told her she wouldn't even be alive for her wedding if my wife wasn't there. I've been bombarded with calls, and family members have scolded me for calling my own mother a terrible person. My wife was entitled for wanting a good relationship with her mother-in-law, and I was a henpecked husband. Am I the a-hole? OP's mother is a bad person. Whether she likes OP's wife or not, doesn't matter. OP chose her, and she is OP's family. They come as a pair. Not the a-hole. So your wife saved your mother, who is consistently awful to your wife, and the family doesn't see that she is consistently awful to your wife? What the hell? Why the actual hell would you let your wife donate part of her liver to a woman who can't stand her? Like, if my mother was horrible to my husband, there's no way in hell I'd be shipping him off to the hospital to help her. Not the a-hole, but what possessed your wife to donate to someone who hates her? Yes, it was generous, but if she or you thought that would change anything, well, that was naive. Your wife should probably avoid your mother and just get on with her life. Be happy together, and don't, you or your wife, give your mother any further opportunities to be unkind to your wife.